Good Monday morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm here in the sanctuary of First Scots Presbyterian Church in downtown Charleston. I got my colleagues here from St. Michael's and First Scots, St. John's, and Holy Trinity. I'm Marshall Blaylock. I'm the pastor of First Baptist Church, and I'm glad to see you this morning. Our text today is Psalm 22, verse 14. And the 22nd Psalm was written by David, inspired by God, written by David, but it tracks so beautifully with the heart of Jesus on the cross. He quoted the first verse from the cross. And we can see throughout the whole chapter, as we look at this during the Lenten season, that these words that were spoken by David 1,000 years earlier are truly representative of the heart of Christ and the heart of Christ for you and me. So today, verse 14, Jesus is, we believe, praying this. David wrote this. He says, "I'm poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melting within my breast." You can imagine as these words are being prayed by Jesus on the cross, we see in this verse the physical agony of Jesus. Jesus at this point had been beaten, flogged, nailed to a cross. At this point, his entire weight is being carried by the nails in his hands and feet as he struggles to breathe. He had been on the cross by the time he prays this prayer for hours. It was physical trauma, unlike any would ever want to experience. The crucifixion itself was an assault on the body of Jesus. And when he says, "I'm poured out like water," which you can feel in the text, all my strength is just flowing out of me. When he says, "My heart's melting like wax," you can feel the strength of Jesus as he prays this prayer falling out of him. And in the text, we don't see it in the clearest sense, but in the background, we understand. Here he is, God in the flesh, God incarnate. And we see both the deity and the humanity of Jesus throughout these different verses. But here, most significantly, we see the humanity of Jesus. Now, Jesus is equally God and man. But the truth is that in our churches in today's world, we tend to overemphasize perhaps the deity of Jesus, which is good. To know the deity of Christ is an amazing truth. But do not forget and undersell the fact that Jesus was also fully human. This text draws our hearts to that great truth. He was born like you and me. He grew up like you and I. In fact, the likelihood is, although they didn't have Band-Aids back then, I'm sure he scraped his knee just like you did when you were a kid, or your children do now today. He likely learned a trade under Joseph's direction as a youngster. But because he was a man, human like you and me, we have a Savior who can identify with us uniquely. And that's what's so important about this text. Hebrews chapter 4 gives us another insight. In verse 15 it says, "For we do not have a high priest who's unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way just as we are, yet was without sin. Let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need." Jesus suffered on that cross physically. He knows the depth of any suffering we have, even physically. This text reminds us he even knows what it feels like for life to be melting away from us, as he describes here. And yet he did all that because he loved you. You've got a Savior who knows exactly what it's like to live this life. He knows every temptation you face. He knows every pain you face. And you can trust him. So today I invite you to walk in the trust of a Savior who understands every part of your life because he's walked those same paths. Today we encourage you to begin a new week. Live in the strength of a Savior who gave his strength that you might have that same strength. God's blessing for a great day, and Lord willing, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.